Hello, my name is Lucas Fiener, and right now in this video I'm going to be talking about the Week 6 discussion question 1. This discussion question is talking about James Sire's book, The Universe Next Door, specifically the first chapter. Within the first chapter of his book, he talked about and summarized what a worldview is in one paragraph. And throughout this video post, I'll be talking about his paragraph that he wrote on that, the summary of what a worldview is, and then I'll be sharing a time in my life when my worldview came into greater clarity. So in this paragraph, he mentioned a few things. The first of which is that a worldview is as a commitment, expressed as a set of presuppositions, assumptions that may not be true, conscious, consistent, and the foundation on which we live. So those 6 things are what I'm going to be talking about. The first is worldview as a commitment. What he was talking about here is basically saying that your worldview is like the very core of your being. It makes who you are. Everything that you do or that you say somehow connects to your worldview. Now, if your worldview is maybe, say, Christian, then a lot of your actions will reflect how you being a Christian. Maybe you'll try and be a better person. Maybe you'll try and act more like Christ because your worldview is, as you're a Christian, you want to follow God. You might not even consciously think about doing it. It's just so ingrained in you that it's like the blueprint for all of your actions. The next thing that I want to talk about and that he mentioned is expressed as a set of presuppositions. You see, if my worldview is Christian, then I can presuppose that I'll go to heaven before I die. My worldview isn't that I'll go to heaven, but my worldview is that I'm a Christian. And because I'm a Christian, you can see that because I'm presupposing that I'll go to heaven before I die. So one of the ways that you can see who has a certain worldview or what a person's worldview is based off their presuppositions. Another thing that I want to talk about, and the next thing that he brought up, is assumptions that may or may not be true. Let's go back to another example. If my worldview is Christian, then I will assume that God created everything in 6 days and rested on the 7th. My only reason for this is what other people have told me and an old book called the Bible. You see, if I'm playing the devil's advocate here, that is not that great of evidence. It's just one old book and a few second or third hand people who never personally saw God and talked to him. They might have talked to him through like prayer or something, but they never actually were in the presence of God. So therefore it is an assumption and it may not be true. But the exact same goes for atheism. If you believe in the Big Bang, then there's certain scientific evidence, but it doesn't add up to a whole lot. No one was actually there when the Big Bang was created. No one has been here for millions of years to say, oh yeah, I saw all that happen. So it has to be an assumption and therefore isn't true. So you see, based off your worldview, whether it's Christian or atheist or whatever, you'll have these assumptions that may or may not be true. The next of the 6, the fourth one that I want to talk about is conscience. And there are 2 types of assumptions. This is kind of like a subsection under the assumptions that may not be true section. The first one is conscience. You see, there are assumptions that are based off your worldview. Every single one is either a conscious assumption or a consistent assumption. For a conscious one is stuff that you can consciously think about. For instance, it would go against my worldview if I saw someone hitting a female. So I would consciously know that that is wrong. I would consciously think you should not be doing that. That is not okay, and I'll try to change the situation. The second type of assumption is consistence. This is the second one, and for instance, it's stuff that you might not consciously think about, but is consistently there. For instance, for my worldview, I know that all humans are created in the image of God. And because of this, I will have this, I might not think about it. I might not walk up to a random person in the street and think to them or say to them, hey, you're created in the image of God, by the way. I wouldn't think that every time I see someone, but it is consistently there. Every time I see someone, I will think either subconsciously or just subconsciously know that they are in the image of God. I won't think about it, but I will know it. That's why it's consistently there and not consciously there. And now the sixth thing that he talks about is the foundation of which we live. Now this one is pretty simple. It's saying that our worldview is the foundation for which we do everything, all of our actions and everything that we say. It's kind of like this. The foundation of a house is what the house is built on. Without the foundation being there, then the house couldn't be built. So, in the same way, it's the foundation for our lives is our worldview. Without the worldview, we couldn't be human, really, because we wouldn't have that foundation on which to live. We have to have that worldview and that foundation for us to be human, to live our lives in a normal way. It is the base of everything we say and do. And so that was the summary of the paragraph. It kind of explained the paragraph where he summarized what a worldview is. Now, the second part of this discussion question that we're supposed to do is to share a time in your life when your worldview came into greater clarity. I would have to say that the time is honestly just like a few hours ago when I was reading through the book. Because, I mean, I'm 16, I'm not that old. And until a little bit ago, serious stuff like that didn't really interest me. I didn't really care about that. I just wanted to have fun, live my life, I don't know, maybe do school, hang out with friends, and that was it. I didn't really care about deeper things. But now I'm getting a little bit older and I'm 16, I'm starting to see and to care about things like actually having a strong faith with God or caring about what a worldview is and why you should have it. So I think the time in my life when I really saw that my worldview came into greater clarity was through reading that book. Because before that, I knew about a worldview and I kind of knew what it was, but I never really understood it. And through reading that book, that gave me a way greater understanding of what a worldview is, and also what my worldview is and why I believe what I do. And I thought that that was really cool. In this week 6 discussion question 1 video post, I talked about two things. The first one, I shared a time in my life when my worldview came into greater clarity. And I talked about how through reading the book, it came into greater clarity and I understood more what I believed and why I believed it. The second thing that I talked about was summarizing James Sire's paragraph in the Universe Next Door, talking and summarizing about what a worldview is. And I kind of broke it down and dissected it into sections and then talked about all those sections in depth. Thank you.